Well, hello there. I'm Greg McGuire, and this is Poker Training. As you can see, I'm playing a couple tables, just at 2 cent, 5 cent on Pokerstars. And yeah, I want to welcome you guys. I'm here to provide a bit of an education about how to play these small stakes and how to beat them. Uh, this isn't going to be a beginner series. I'm going to assume that you have a basic knowledge of hand strength, position, other things like that. That I'm not going to take the time to go over. What I'm going to talk about is, I'll brush on those, but basically, I'm expecting that you have a basic idea of how to play poker, but likely are struggling to beat games online. Um, Games online, even at the really low stakes, are a lot harder than they were even 2 or 3 years ago. Um, a lot more players know how to play. A lot more players are tracking data and learning from their own mistakes, which is definitely something that everyone should do. Um, and the level of competition has just skyrocketed. That being said, there are still many bad players and many decent players that can be exploited and beat, especially at these lower limits. And we're going to take a look at how. So right now you can see I'm playing two tables. Um, I do encourage players to multi-table. When you're first starting out, it's quite alright to just play one table at a time. But most players will eventually find that kind of slow online, and you because like in a live game there's a lot of things to pay attention to in your opponents that you don't necessarily get a chance to see online. How they're sitting, just their basic appearance, and the way they're approaching the game. There's a bunch of subtle tells that you can pick up, whereas online, there's not that much information out there other than betting patterns and the like. So you don't really need to be paying quite as much attention to each individual game. I'm not saying you shouldn't be highly focused, but it allows you to take advantage of, or playing multiple tables allows you to take advantage of that lack of information by using your time more effectively and getting into more hands, more spots where you can make correct decisions and better decisions than your opponents and win money. Um, I I often will play 4 tables at a time. I don't really like playing much more than that. There are players out there that'll play 12. There are players out there that'll play 16 or 20 at a time. I believe the Pokerstars software allows you to play up to 32 at a time, but I might be wrong. A few of the other sites I play on, the limit is 16. But either way, you can definitely play a lot of tables at a time. When you're first starting out, or if you've been playing for a while but you're still struggling to beat the games, I really recommend playing just 2 tables. It's busy enough that you'll still see a lot of hands, you'll still get some time to play, but it gives you more of a chance to think about what you're doing and really focus on each decision and to think more creatively, as opposed to if you're just playing autopilot, where you kind of just play based on your hands and based on the numbers you see on the opponents. And those numbers that I'm talking about, I use a program called Hold'em Manager. There's a number of this kind of software. And I called here and he did not bet. I'm gonna fire because A, he didn't, so it's a good spot to bet, and B, I have a gut shot straight draw and 2 overcards, so I have some equity. I have about 10 outs. Over here, pretty standard, the guy limped, so I raised a little bit more than I normally do because of a limper, and I have a strong hand. When this guy leads into the pot, it makes me think, I mean, he seems to be a loose player, but it's too early to tell after only 4 hands. But it makes me think that he probably has a pair and a draw, or something like that. And this guy just calls, so he's probably not very strong. Either way, this is a scary board, and I have a strong hand, so I want to make a big bet to force people to pay a lot of money to chase after me. If they've got a hand that's okay and could catch up, I want them paying for it. Now, this guy goes all in, which, I mean, probably means that he's got a better hand than me. It's hard to say, but he's not even sitting with a full stack, and there's a lot of money out there. It's only $250 more to call. I'm gonna call. He's been playing pretty loose. Oh, and he's got a straight draw. Oh, and he hit. So, made the right decision. It didn't work out. That's gonna happen. So, I always like to keep a full stack on the table. So when I get beat like that, just add on more chips. Especially when you see a player that's going to shove with a draw like that, you really want to make sure you have a full stack at the table, so that you can, when you get into a situation where all the money goes in, you want to make sure that you're making as much money as possible. These tables actually allow you to, these lower stake tables actually allow you to load as much as 250 big blinds, which, if you're comfortable playing with that much, I certainly recommend. For the purpose of these videos, I'm only playing with 100 big blinds, and you can see most of the people at the table are only playing with 100 big blinds as well, so there's not much point in having more than that. And the game changes a little bit when you're deeper stacked. It gets a bit more complicated. I'd be happy in another video to go into deep stack play at these stakes. So if you want to see that, post something in the comments, and I'd be happy to do that in one of my later videos. But for now, I want to keep it simple, and 100 big blinds is a lot simpler than playing with deeper stacks than that. Because then you have to, well, basically, not only do you stand to win or lose more in each hand, you also have to pay much more attention to adjusting your strategy based on the effective stacks, which is the size of the stack that your opponent, or the size of the stack that is smallest between you and your opponents, because that's the only amount of money that's being risked on that hand. So here you can see I flopped bottom pair with a paired board. I probably have the best hand, especially with my kicker, but this guy's kind of crazy, so I don't want to build a big pot with ace-5. I am going to raise just to A, to see if I can limit the competition, B, just because I probably had the best hand. Now, you see the problem with a hand like ace-5 here is that on the turn, you're almost always going to have a better card pop up than your pair. So you have to be careful. I will fire another bet just because I have the betting lead. Nobody else has shown any strength, and it's unlikely that the queen hit him. But those are the kind of situations that you might not even want to get into um, with an ace-5 on the flop, because almost anything is going to beat your pair of fives on the turn if it hits your opponent. No point stealing with a hand like Jack-3 offsuit. If I've been playing really tight at a table, I'll steal with almost any two cards from the small blind just to keep myself active. And if I've been a little card dead, my opponents are more likely to give my bet credit because I haven't been betting very much. But in general, you want to have a decent hand when you're raising out of the small blind, especially at these stakes, because you're more likely to get called. Players like to call at this stake. They like to play flops, and they like to call a lot of c-bets, so you don't want to be playing with crap, especially in the small blind, where if the big blind calls you, you're always out of position. And I mean, position's a fairly basic concept in poker, but I will go into it for a second. The biggest part of position is that you want to be acting after your opponent. You don't want to be the first person putting money in on later streets. You don't want to be the first person making a decision, because then your opponent has more information when they choose to make their decision than you do when you had to make your decision. You want to be in a position where your opponent has to bet first. So the best position at the table is the button, the dealer button, just because you're guaranteed to be acting last. And that's why the dealer button rotates each hand, because it's the best place. Ace-8 suited here, I could raise this, but I mean, the one player that I want to be playing against, or the two players I want to be playing against, one folded, and the other one's on the button. You can see I timed out there, but I wasn't going to raise anyway. And playing out of position against a donkey isn't going to be that profitable. You do, I mean, you can definitely make money against donkeys from any position, but it's a lot easier when you can get them acting first. So a hand like ace-8 suited, if I had been one closer to the blinds, I definitely would have raised. But in the middle position, in this second seat here, it's just not that strong a hand. I mean, you can see I would have flopped, well, I would have flopped a pair of aces, which is great. But with an 8 kicker, if someone else is willing to put a lot of money in, they probably have a better hand. There's just not much point in fighting with a suited ace like that. I mean, certainly if you've got a donkey in the blinds that you want to be targeting, or if someone has already limped in, then it becomes a better hand. And suited aces are great because you can hit flushes, and if you do, it's a nut flush. But people tend to overrate the value of suited cards. I mean, you're only going to hit a flush. Maybe with the suited cards, I think it's about 2% of the time by the river. And that's not even on the flop or on the turn. That's when all the cards are out. So if you even manage to get that far in the betting, you're only going to hit a flush a very small percentage of the time. That being said, it does add some value to your hand so that you can chase after flops that you might otherwise fold on if you have a flush draw, in which case you can always back into a better hand. But you don't really want to be going crazy with suited aces out of position. And you can see at this table, these are the two players that I want to be playing against. You always want to look for those players at the table that are playing lots of pots, that are playing hands like 7-5 offsuit, or 7-9 offsuit and paying off on the river for $1 with a single pair that's not even top pair. You want to be playing against those guys. And at the stake, that's why you don't really want to be playing weak hands. That's why you don't really want to be bluffing much. There's still the occasions that you do want to bluff. There's going to be some regulars that you can run 3-barrel bluffs against, because a lot of the better players at this stake are cautious players and are what I would call, they're typically referred to as a mice or a mouse, where they are tight and aggressive. They know which hands are good, and they play mostly just those hands, but they play them kind of weakly. And if you make big bets, they get scared off. And unless they have a really strong hand, they'll often pay you once or twice and then fold if you keep betting. So they're a good target for every now and then throwing a bluff at. Here it's just a limped pot. I've got second pair. He didn't take advantage of his chance to bet when I checked to him, so he probably has nothing, so take it down. I'd make a bet like that often with no pair whatsoever. It's just when an opponent gives you that much information, limping into a pot and then not betting on the flop, you get the odd opponent that's trying to be tricky, but in general, that just means that they've got nothing, and they've got no interest in continuing in the hand, and you can take it away from them. And even if it's just a few cents, taking those pots away from your opponents is a big part of how you make your money in the long run. If you look at the profits of a good player, even at these stakes, but especially at the higher stakes, the big pots, won and lost, you'll definitely make some money off of them, but that's not where you make your bread and butter. The majority of the money that you're going to win at poker in general is small pots, just over and over doing the right things, looking for places that you can steal from your opponents, looking for places that you can take down the blinds, and looking for players that aren't trying to protect their bid, that will put money in and then fold. Now here, this is an interesting spot. I've got a good hand in King Queen suited. I haven't seen this guy 3-bet yet. And not only that, but this person in 34 hands has only played 9% and is calling the 3-bet. Now I'm getting good odds, but I don't care, because my hand is likely dominated. And dominated is when you have one card the same as someone else, but they have a higher kicker to that card. So with King Queen, if an opponent of mine had Ace King or Ace Queen, which is a very likely holding for either of these players, I'm in a really bad spot, especially if I make a pair with that card and they have the higher kicker. They're going to take a lot of money from me before I get a chance to realize that I'm beat. And oh wow, okay, so that's a really interesting spot. This guy was bluffing when he did the 3-bet. As I said, she had Ace King, which is kind of what I was afraid of, is that someone had a hand that had me dominated. And even though I didn't hit anything there, and I would have probably just folded, I saved 35 cents just by not playing. And King Queen's a really pretty hand. It's hard to get away from, but you have to find those spots where you can do you can fold when you want to call, but you know you shouldn't, and that's just one of those spots. Now, I have a gut shot here. People like to raise people that donk into them, and so do I. It's good in general when people lead out of position like that, not as the pre-flop raiser. They don't have much. They're kind of betting with a weak hand, testing your strength, seeing what you do. But at these stakes, I often find that players, when they do that, are actually committed to the hand, and if you raise them, it doesn't actually end up working out that well for you. Now, here's an interesting spot. I raise with aces. Obviously, I want to get as much money in as possible. Sometimes I'm going to slow play here, though, when someone re-raises me, because I kind of want to get the money in from these but I'm out of position. This guy seems like a competent player, so I don't really want to be messing around with him post-flop. So I make a small 4-bet, and we'll see what he does. Okay, he folds. That's fine. I mean, obviously with aces, you want to get paid off as much as you can. So it's not great to make your opponent fold, but you also don't want to get too tricky. You can get burned pretty easily with aces because, yeah, they win. I mean, against a random hand, they win about 87% of the time. Once you get two people in there, your chances go down. And it's the type of situation where if I don't build a big pot pre-flop, it's still going to be very hard for me to get away from aces post-flop unless the board's just absolutely terrible. And it just puts you in a situation where you're not likely to win much. And you're very likely to, well, you're not very likely, but if you lose, you're probably going to lose a lot. So it's dangerous to slow play aces. It's definitely worth it at times. It needs to be, you need to have that as a wrinkle in your game. But you don't want to be doing it out of position. And that's the real key to that hand. If I knew the player really well, if we'd been playing a couple hundred hands, it would have been nice, because Nizmi definitely seems to be one of the players at the table that I should be going after. But sometimes it's just easier to make another bet. If he's got ace king or kings, he's coming with me anyway, and there's a chance that after the flop he won't be interested in putting any more money in. I'm going to do something funny. I'm going to bet 5 cents here. So I had a huge hand, and I want him to raise me. But, okay, so he clearly didn't have anything, so I wasn't going to win a big pot. There's people that, when they hit a big hand like that, they always want to slow play. And there's certainly an argument to be made, like there, if I had checked, he probably would have bet, and then I could have raised or called and tried to get him to bet again. And either way, I would have made more money than I did by betting, because he just folded. And my hand was so strong that I can afford him to check behind. There was a flush draw, but I'm willing to take that chance without trips. However, if he has a good hand, a hand that he's willing to bet or raise with, then if I lead out with a bet, it's much more likely to get paid off for a large amount of money than if I check and raise, which is going to send out alarm bells in his head. He's going to be much more cautious after I do that. Whereas if I... Oh, that's too bad. The player that I was looking to go after on this table made a typical play and overplayed his overpair significantly, especially because it's only pocket eights, and lost all of his money. So unfortunately, my target on this table is now gone. But maybe he'll reload. Maybe another player will sit down and play similarly. But getting back to what I was saying, when you have a strong hand, especially if you're an aggressive player that bets most of the time, bets more than calls, then slow playing actually can be a bad thing, because it will get more money from your opponents when they don't have a hand, but when they have a strong hand, betting it is almost always better, because they're less likely to get suspicious. You're just betting the way you always do, and if they have a good hand that they feel good about, that your hand is beating, you're much more likely to get into a confrontation that gets their whole stack just by betting. So, you should definitely mix it up between the two. You don't always want to be betting with your strong hands there. You need to check raise sometimes. You need to check call and then play later streets for value. But certainly you want to be betting the majority of the time. In the long run, it's just going to make you more money. So a little bit of downtime here. I don't have any interesting hands going on. See, Nizmi is about to lose his last 41 cents. Yep. That's too bad. You always want the bad players to be winning money. But onward and upwards. I guess I could take a minute to talk about Bankroll, actually. I'll talk about this in more detail probably in a later video. But just to get started, it's really important. Like, you might wonder why I'm playing $5 games. I certainly normally play at higher stakes on most sites, but my Pokerstars account only has a couple $100 in it, and this is kind of where I wanted to start, partially for the sake of the video, but also because it's really important when you're playing poker to not risk a large percentage of your available funds on any one game. If you have $50 and you're playing $5 games, believe it or not, you're actually in danger of going broke. It's really possible to be a good player and have a sick downswing where you lose 5, 6, 7, or 8 buy-ins in a row. Just either you're playing bad that one day, or you get a bad round of luck, or both. Okay, so here I raised Queen Jack suited, pretty standard on the button, one limper. I flopped a gut shot straight flush draw. Not a great hand, but definitely good enough to put a bet in. I would be c-betting most king high flops anyway, because that kind of board texture when you've got one high card and two low cards on the board, even when it's suited, it's very unlikely that your opponent hit any of it. And so you want to be betting. I'll get into board texture in a bit, but like properly with a couple examples. But you want to be betting a lot on boards where it's unlikely that your opponent hit, because they're just less likely to continue. At the higher levels, and against some players at these levels, they're going to know that. They're going to know that you're going after those quote-unquote dry boards. And they're going to fight back more on those boards with weak hands just because they know that's what you're doing. But in general at these levels, you really want to be attacking those boards. Now this is a dry board, but unfortunately my powerhouse pocket kings are looking at an ace. Because I'm in position, I can check. I wouldn't normally check out of position. I'd bet just to give people a chance to fold. Now this is a great flop over here. This bet, he's a tight player. Over 42% of the hands, he's played 7% of them. So I'm not really expecting that he's bluffing. So I'm going to let this go. Sucks to fold pocket kings, but it's just, you got to sometimes. There's just nothing to be done. That 8 isn't a great card for me, but I'm definitely still betting. He could have any number of draws. Oh, and that's sick. I'm gonna put out a blocker bet. Actually, he only has 64 cents left. What am I thinking? I'm just gonna bet his stack. Yeah, and there we go. Here I could have c-bet again, but this is a kind of board texture that's dangerous. Two close together cards, no high card that you can represent. Now I've got a flush draw, so I'm definitely raising here. And I've got the two overcards too, so that helps. And he only bet 5 cents, so like, who's he kidding? Into a 40-cent pot when someone bets 5 cents, they're probably not very strong. And yeah, take it down. But sorry, getting back to the bankroll issues that I was talking about, it's really important to risk only a small percentage of your bankroll when you're playing. The typical wisdom that I hear is you want to have about 20 buy-ins for the stakes you're playing. So if you're playing a $5 game, you want to have at least $100 in your bankroll before you start playing $5 games. That's fine, but I actually think that's a little bit small, especially for new players, especially for players that are struggling a bit, or just learning the game, or have been winning for a little while but are still kind of new to it. It's just way too likely that you will run into a situation where you lose 5 or 6 or 8 or 9 buy-ins, and if you have 30 or 40 buy-ins in your bankroll, you can kind of absorb that and not get too emotional, and recognize it as a swing. If you lose half your bankroll in a day, which you can definitely go on 10 buy-in swings in a day, playing well, you're much more, myself, I know, I guess every person's different, but you're much more likely to have an emotional reaction, to go on tilt, to get scared of playing, or to not really feel like you can continue at playing well, or to feel like you can continue playing well, but not do so. Now, against this short stack, ace queen is enough for me to get it in. So I'm going to raise, and if he shoves, I'm going to call. Um, and he calls. Ace King 4, that's a great flop for me. I'm definitely going to bet. Let's do 65 cents. It's a little bit more than half the pot. Pretty standard. And he snap folds. Probably he had a decent pocket pair. I was kind of hoping he had like an ace jack. But yeah. Now here, this is a decent flop for c-betting. However, actually, you know what? I haven't. I was going to say I've been c-betting a lot, but I haven't on this table. So I'm going to bet. He's going to have a hard time continuing unless he has a pair, which is unlikely on that board, or a big club. And again, it's just not that likely. If you think about which big cards he could have, he's probably got about a 40% chance of having a club draw if he's got two big cards in his hand, and he's got less than that chance of hitting a board like that. So it's just a good spot to bet. You don't want to be c-betting like crazy at these stakes. I usually aim for about 70% of the time I c-bet, and 35% of that roughly is going to be when I've hit a hand. Another maybe 10 or 15% of that will be when I hit a draw. And then the remaining amount of that is... Okay, I'm sorry, I'm going to interrupt that just for a second. Right here, I checked behind because I flopped middle pair. You're not going to make much money off middle pair if you're betting and he calls. But I wanted to call one street. Now, he's fired twice. Even if the board is flushing, he's still betting again. So I'm going to assume he has an ace. I'm going to let it go. Obviously, it's nice to see what your opponent has. It would be nice to call there. It's only 50 cents, but the pot wasn't that big. And, you kind of have to make those folds. You could be folding the best hand, but more often than not, he's got you beat if he's betting twice there. And the sizing was a bit of a tell too. It's not like a small little I don't know what I'm doing bet. It was a reasonable bet, which at these stakes you have to respect. You can see ace 10 there. I got 3-bet. It's the second time he's 3-bet me, but and last time he did have crap, but that actually makes it more likely that he's got a good hand this time. And ace 10 suited is not a hand you want to bring to war in 3-bets because most of the, if he's 3-betting junk, fine, but if I don't hit something on the flop, he's probably going to take it anyway. Ace 10 suited is not really strong enough to continue by itself. And if he does have a strong hand and I hit something, he's likely going to have me dominated. He could have a pocket pair and I could hit a pair of 10s and be behind, or now I'm going to give him a taste of his own medicine. Ace 7 suited is a nice little hand. He's been raising a lot. 3-bet time. And I don't really mind if he decides to call or re-raise. It's just good to throw a few 3-bets out there. Show him that I'm not afraid to get into a betting war pre-flop. He's less likely to 3-bet me if he sees that I'm comfortable with 3-bet pots. And because he's directly on my left, I don't really want him 3-betting me very often because I like to raise and I don't always have good hands when I do. And I don't want to have to be dancing around, is he 3-betting me because he's got a good hand, or is he 3-betting me because I raise a lot? Or is he 3-betting me just because he likes 3-betting? it's much easier to kind of convince him not to 3-bet me. And sometimes that'll take a 4-bet, and sometimes I'll do a 4-bet with not very good cards. You could be losing that 4-bet, but showing him that you're not afraid to fight. Yeah, I'm rambling. Alright, I think that's good enough for now. We'll, I'm gonna play till the next big blind on each table. So if anything interesting comes up, we'll discuss that. And yeah, it's really gonna help me if you guys get involved with these videos. If you guys want to click the like button, if you want to subscribe to my channel, it's great. Every single one gets me more. It gets more people likely to see this video. Also, comments. If you guys have any requests, any something that I do that annoys you, any questions about the stuff I've talked about, I'll be responding to the comments. So please feel free to say whatever. We can get some discussion going, and I can get some better material for my next videos. And yeah, this one has been a little like all over the place. So if you want to see something a little bit more streamlined, give me some ideas. Now this is cool. I'm glad that I got like one more hand that is actually playable. I hit the trips on the turn. It's been checked twice, so probably everyone's gonna fold. But it's yeah, that's too bad. But you have to bet there. You don't want to check and then have a flush card come on the river and everyone's scared of the flush. Very likely someone could have had a queen there and paid me off. People won't always bet out with their queen when there's a king on the board, but they're also not going to fold to turn bet. So you really have to be going after value there. You can't, when no one's betting, you're not going to be making much money by checking and hoping that they choose to bet later. Here, normally I would be playing this straight draw, but he's actually made a big bet. And I've got implied odds, especially against him. Yeah, I'll play. I was going to say I'm out of position, so there's not much sense in playing, but I completely forgot who I was playing against. This guy is the type of player that you want to be playing draws against. Because if you hit a big hand, you're very likely to take a significant chunk of his stack. Now, that being said, I missed on the turn, and he's only charging me half the pot for the river, but the board's paired now. There's 2 flush draws out there, so my chances to make the nuts are gone. And I don't really need to be messing around anymore. So, good hand, sir. You had top pair, apparently. That's very nice. I love it when people show me their hands. It's just a little bit of extra information. I'll sometimes show my hands to opponents, but only in very specific circumstances. Usually, if like I've raised 6 hands in a row, and it's I've got a good hand, I'll show it just to be like, yeah, I have a hand. I'm not being stupid. I'm actually playing decent cards. And also, I'll sometimes show a hand when I bluff, only to certain players. You can get to the point, and I don't really know how to explain how to do this, But you can get to the point where even online you can tell who's the emotional players. You can tell who's going to have trouble